All of these answer choices fit our 4 main transition categories. In contrast is a fancy way of saying but. Regardless is a fancy way of saying but. In addition is a fancy way of saying and for this reason is a fancy way of saying so. Now even for just like choice D, right? Like I know that you probably know what for this reason means, but I still recommend trying to turn these weird transition words into the simpler transitions that we use every day because our brain has a much more natural understanding of words like but, and so. We use them in conversation without even thinking about it, whereas these other things are more like words we might use if we're writing a paper, an essay for school, right, to make it sound smarter. But it doesn't mean that it's better, right? We want to bring these things back to simpler versions of themselves so that way our brain is using a little bit more of its just kind of intuitive understanding of how sentences are related. So now let's take a look. To guarantee the validity of experimental results, scientists rely on precise, unchanging standards of measurement. Metrologists, scientists who study measurements, develop the SI, or International System of Units. Oh, okay, that seems, I don't know what the relationship is. The SI's units of measurement are based on unchanging values in nature, such as the mass of an electron or the speed of light. So scientists rely on precise, unchanging standards of measurement. Then we talk about the SI system, and then the reason they have this is it's unchanging, right? So, okay, these do not seem to be contrasting ideas. This seems to be reinforcing. So that's going to get rid of A and B. Plus, if we're following our strategy, these two words basically mean the same thing. So it'd be very, very rare for them to be correct, or for one of them to be correct and the other not. Now, that did happen on the last question, but just notice on number 22, we had to deal with an exception to this rule, but back on number 23, I'm okay using it again. I do not doubt the strategies. Occasionally there's an exception that does not weaken my confidence in the fact that it usually works. So both of those mean but, very unlikely that one be right and one be wrong. So from there, honestly, I'm going to gravitate towards choice D, because the only reason I would ever pick an and word is if nothing else worked. It's basically a transition that isn't a transition, because and is just saying, okay, here's one thing I'm saying, here's a new thing. But that's just how normal talking and writing works, right? You have a sentence and then you have another sentence, and it could be about the same thing, could be about something different. We don't have any transition. So the only time these and words are really going to be correct is if we've proven everything else wrong. So is a little bit more strong of a word, right? It has that idea of cause and effect. So let's see if that fits. To guarantee the validity of experimental results, scientists rely on precise, unchanging standards of measurement. So metrologists developed the SI, or International System of Units. This system is based on unchanging values in nature, such as the mass of an electron or the speed of light. Yeah, so fits here, right? They need things to be unchanging, so they developed this system which has unchanging units, right? It is a cause and effect. They needed something, so they made something that fulfilled that need. Again, it's not so much that C is wrong. Like, you could say it, I guess. It's not the worst thing. Like if I were grading a paper and someone had put in addition there, I wouldn't really mark it wrong, but it's not going to be right when we have a better option. So I think that's a very key piece of these transition questions. Is there's like a game you're playing and there are rules to the game, and there are certain choices that might not be like totally awful, but if there's a better choice, that's the one we got to go with. And words that mean and tend to be the last resort. We only really pick them if everything else fails.